So I guess we'll start with what questions do you have around succession planning, or what questions did you have around succession planning?
I think that this has been in the works so long. I think my dad has done a really good job of thinking out succession planning, thinking about how the next generation takes over, that it was honestly probably in the works before we even joined the company. It was something that was always in the back of his mind, especially because there were two of us, especially because there were some rough patches when he took over and transitioned into the role of president from his father, that he wanted to smooth the way as much as possible. So it was really a conversation that Jay and I had always been involved in, and it was pretty collaborative. So it's hard for me to think about what questions I had because it's been a work in progress for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes complete sense. And talking with him too, he was very passionate about the fact that he spent the time to make what I think he called it the playbook of these are the rules that my children need to follow, or what they need to do in order to be a part of the company, which is huge. I think that sets you up for success because you know what's expected of you. Is there anything through that playbook and the structure that's already in place? Is there anything that's been where you've had moments of, oh, I'm so thankful that that was in place?
I think one of the things that I have been grateful for, and I think that we'll touch on this a little bit later in one of your other questions, is he was always very, and I think as an ownership team, we have always been very focused in hiring excellence. And one of the examples of that is Gary Halter, who's our president. He has is an integral piece of Indiana Oxygen. And I think my dad and Dave Kaplan did a really good job of scoping out and having their eye on Gary, for example. If you would talk to Dave and my dad, Gary was somebody they always had their eye on, as if the opportunity came, we were going to snatch him up from his days back in BOC. And they saw the potential in Gary to be the sales manager to executive vice president of sales to president. And he was a key piece, I think, of that succession planning, because with his industry knowledge, his connections, with just the way he is, having him involved really set us up for success as a leader, and then also as a mentor when we were newer into the industry and the company.
Absolutely. That's a question that's been in the back of my mind, which I don't really know how to formalize. But for this talk, I'm trying to do as much research as possible around succession planning. And there are definitely folks that are afraid to bring in someone outside of their family for that president role, as if like they're going to lose all control. Was that scary for you guys, or did you have any hesitations, and how has it helped you?
I don't think that we had any hesitations. Maybe we're just very, and I don't know if confidence is the right word, but it's no secret that we're the owners and we're always going to be the owners. And I think being confident in that, being confident in our contributions to the company, but also acknowledging, to be frank, that we lack maybe some experience. And I think being
Mhm.
able, just because we are the owners doesn't mean, at least in our situation, that right off the bat, we were, either Jay and I were ready to assume the role of the president. I think that just having grown up around these and around the business, people knew that we were competent, but I think we would have hurt our credibility to step into that role without any experience. I think that having somebody as talented as Gary in that role, one, made our company better. And I can be the first to admit that I would not have been qualified to be president. And I've been in the industry 10 years, but that's a blip compared to somebody like Gary or my dad. I've still got a lot to learn, and I'm okay with that. And I think that, like I said before, going after excellence, you know, has just made our company better. It's made me a better owner because I've been
Mhm.
able to learn from that. And so I think that's been really valuable. But we've never felt threatened by bringing in somebody from the outside. I think we've just always looked at it as an opportunity to surround ourselves with the best people and learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes that nepotism out of it. The other employees are seeing you learn, seeing you grow. You're okay with other perspectives coming in. If you're bringing in Gary Halter, like obviously it's a safe place for them to express their ideas and opinions. Okay, so what parts of the succession structure at Indiana Oxygen help to empower you? I know I kind of asked that, but
I think going back to when I first came on, I succeeded Dave Kaplan in the CFO role, and he just gave me a lot of support, was fully on board with it, was excited for it, and I think did an excellent job of allowing me to make the position my own while giving me all of the tools and the resources I needed to be successful, and also always being there if I needed him, which I
yeah.
appreciated. And I think that we have done a really good job crafting our team to, we have a really great executive team. So I think that makes succession easier because we have the right people in the right places. And as I've said, our president is the culture driver of Indiana Oxygen. Our CFO has really taken the company, I think, to the next level in terms of financial health. And we are in the strongest position that we've ever been. Our chief information officer has grown our e-commerce division, but also has really transformed the way that we operate from a marketing perspective as a cohesive brand, which I think is important. And our chief technology officer has really just brought us into best practices to allow us to operate efficiently in, in the 21st century. It's just an exciting time right now. We are really on the
Yeah.
cusp of some great things, and we have a leadership team that is excited and energized to take us to the next level as a company. And so I
Mhm.
think that's really empowering and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah, it's almost like opportunities are endless. You guys can be traditional but creative. You can empower your employees. Yeah, that's really neat. I know I was so impressed by how many like superstars you guys have on the team because they're in the right places as well. That's a huge piece of it, which is really hard to get the right people in the right spots. So, more power to you all. And as next gen, what advice would you give to the past gen about passing the torch?
It might sound odd, but I think you need to acknowledge how emotional it can be. In many instances, especially ours, my dad took the company from a $2 million company in 1982 when he took over as president to an $88 million company. And that is your baby. That is a big part of your identity. And it can be an emotional transition. One of the best things that we have done and that he has done, um, especially from when he transitioned from the CEO president role to just the CEO role, was bringing in an outside facilitator to work with him and Gary Halter to really define each other's roles, define the goals, and make sure that they were operating on the same page, and to
Mhm.
work through any of those emotions that he had with ceding authority to somebody else because he'd been
Mhm.
in that role since 1982. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is that it's emotional and that's okay. And I
Mhm.
think if you ignore that, I think you can get yourself into some trouble.
Yeah, it is so impressive what he's done. And when I was talking with him, he was talking about these big mistakes that he made in the beginning, and I just he like saw the how much value was in those mistakes, which I think is You have to credit someone that can learn from their mistakes. I think that's why people are successful. Okay, so I keep hearing people or companies talk about they get facilitators. Did you have any part in how they chose the right facilitator? Because I feel like that would be nearly impossible. It seems so overwhelming to start with.
So we have been very fortunate. My dad is in one of the Vistage
Oh
CEO
yeah.
groups,
Okay.
and the facilitator on that is actually a board member of ours. And so
Oh,
he's very familiar with not only our company, but he's very familiar with my dad. He's been a part of this group for 20 years. Cal really knows our business and knows my dad and his personality, and they have a good enough relationship to have very honest conversations. And so that has been a huge benefit to us. We were at the IWDC in Park City, and I forget who it was, had brought in a facilitator to work on succession planning as well. And so I think the most important thing is to find somebody that you click with and you can be honest with, but that will also be honest with you, because if you have a yes person, it's
right.
going to be worthless, because a lot of these conversations are challenging and emotionally charged and difficult. And so you need
Yeah.
somebody who is a little bit removed from the situation, that can push you in those conversations.
I love that. Excellent. And what helped you most as a next gen coming into leadership at Indiana Oxygen?
I think just a couple of things. I think one, and this isn't important for everybody, doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it was important that I had a career prior to working at Indiana Oxygen. I felt like it gave me a little bit of gravitas, a little bit of legitimacy, maybe, because I was coming in because I wanted to and was excited about working there. And also, again, just really the support. It was all of the resources that I needed to be successful were provided to me, whether that was working with Dave, whether that was salespeople offering to have me ride along with them and make sales calls and introduce me to customers. It was just a very resource rich environment. And even getting involved in trade association groups, getting involved, we're in the BIG group, and that has been a fabulous resource for us. Just being able to reach out and talk about issues or problems that we were having. A lot of us are of this generation. And so it's just the members are a great support system. Getting involved with GATA and the IWDC, it's just, I feel like I came into a very resource rich environment, both internally and externally.
That's great. And do you personally, I know you said that Wally's part of Vistage, my father's part of Vistage as well, and has received a lot of great resources through that. Do you have a resource you use that's similar to that type of executive coaching?
I was a part of a group that was Executive Women in Finance, which was nice. With
Oh,
COVID, it splintered. So I'm actually looking for a new group to join, because
okay.
I think it's super valuable to meet with a group of peers, especially honestly, it's really valuable to meet with a group of peers that's in a different industry, because they may
Mm,
approach problems that you're having differently. And you might have a solution that you would never have thought of because you're so used to seeing it one way.
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm also searching around. It's great. And then, so how has having someone from outside the family as president helped in your succession planning? Do you have any questions slash lessons you'd like to share around this structure?
I I think the biggest benefit is, not only is Gary the right person to be president, I couldn't think of a better person, but also with succession planning, there's change, there can be some trepidation, and he provides continuity, which is good. And he also works really well with not only Jay and I, but our whole executive team really is just on the same page with our goals and the direction that we want to take the company. And
Hmm.
he's a great champion of that. And so I think that it's helped the succession planning to know that Gary as president he's where he's meant to be. And to have that continuity, we know that we're in a good place moving forward.
Excellent. And Wally mentioned Indiana Oxygen has rules around entering the business as a family member. Are there any rules you might change or add to? If so, how?
So he required us to have, like I said, a career outside of the company. I think that might not be, it was the right path for me. I think it was the right path for Jay. That might not be the right path for everybody. I think that for many people, growing up and working your way up through the business, whether that's out of high school or out of college, that can be an equally successful path. So I would just, if there was one thing I would change, I would give flexibility to that. You don't come into the family business because you can't do anything else. But if somebody has a passion for it, and if that's all they want to do, then the flexibility to just be able to start right away, I think is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a rule that was in there that helped you that you're so thankful it was in that playbook?
We have a rule that spouses can't work for the company. And I don't think that either of our spouses would ever choose to work for the company, but just taking that off the table has been helpful, I think, because there have been times with other companies or even in the past where hiring a spouse or hiring another family member has not worked out, and that can really damage the family relationship. So taking that out of the equation, it means it's never an issue.
I hear that quite a bit, especially like in the research of this. And then, do you have advice for next gen around succession planning?
My advice would be don't shy away from uncomfortable conversations. Don't shy away from honest conversations, even if they can get uncomfortable. Because if the three of us have had some emotional conversations, we've had some conversations where we disagree, and you need to work that out without honesty, without laying it out all on the table. There's going to be either misunderstandings or the planning won't run smoothly. People won't be on the same page. And that's really the most important. Everybody has to be on the same page. And that requires talking about everything that could go right and everything that could go wrong. And I know that, especially as children and parents, there is a multifaceted relationship between the work life and the personal life. And to be able to work out the work issues so that they don't bleed over into the family, I think is key.
I love that. That's amazing advice. I needed some of that myself.
Oh,
One
no,
more
you're fine.
question. Do you guys use a facilitator when you have those tough conversations in the family?
Oh, we have. Yeah, we have.
Okay.
And then we also bring him in twice a year. We have an executive team meeting, which is just the executive team, obviously. And we bring him in as well to facilitate those because he's very good at challenging everybody and challenging your responses, challenging, asking the hard questions. And it's often easier to have a neutral third party ask that than maybe somebody who's emotionally invested in it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't realize how many people use facilitators. It makes complete sense. So thank you so much for your time today.
Great. No problem. Thanks, Marie. Appreciate it.